The deed transfer document hit the table with the same weight as my future mother-in-law's words. Every woman in our family signs over property as a wedding gift. It's tradition. I stared at the paper that would give away my $400,000 townhouse to my fiancé's family trust, while 30 rehearsal dinner guests waited for my response like vultures circling a carcass. The real question wasn't whether I'd sign. It was whether they'd survive what came next. My name is Natalie Winters, 29 years old, and that Friday night at Chez Laurent was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became the moment I learned exactly what kind of family I was about to marry into. The restaurant sparkled with candlelight and crystal, every detail meticulously planned by Vivian, my future mother-in-law, who insisted everyone call her Mrs. Pemberton, even after 2 years of dating her son. She'd chosen everything: the menu, the flowers, even the specific shade of ivory for my dress. "Trust me, dear," she'd said. "I know what works for our family." Marcus, my fiancé, sat beside me, his hand on my knee under the table. He'd been fidgeting all evening, and now I understood why. The document lay between the crème brûlée and the champagne flutes, its legal language stark against the white tablecloth. "I don't understand," I said carefully, aware of 30 pairs of eyes on me. "You want me to sign over my house?" Vivian's smile could have frozen hell. "Not want, darling. It's what we do. My mother-in-law did it. I did it. Even Marcus's sister signed over her condo last year. It shows commitment to the family legacy." I glanced at Marcus's sister, Penelope, who suddenly found her dessert fork fascinating. Her husband, Thomas, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Last I'd heard, they were living in a cramped apartment after downsizing. "But I bought this house myself," I said. "With my savings, my career." "Which is precisely why it's meaningful," Vivian interrupted. "The Pemberton women don't keep separate assets. We pool our resources for the family's benefit." Harold, Marcus's father, nodded from his seat at the head of the table. "Smart financial planning, really. Keeps everything centralized." I picked up the document, scanning the legal terms. It wasn't just a simple transfer. It was a complete surrender of my property to the Pemberton Family Trust, with Vivian and Harold as primary trustees. My name would be erased from the deed entirely. "Marcus." I turned to my fiancé, searching his face. "You knew about this?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "It's just how things are done, Nat. You know I'd never let anything happen to you." "Then put your name on the deed with mine." "Why does it need to go to the trust?" The silence that followed was deafening. Vivian's fingers drummed against her champagne flute. "Are you actually questioning 3 generations of Pemberton tradition?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Around the table, Marcus's aunts and uncles watched with barely concealed interest. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a test, and everyone knew it. "I need to think about this," I said, setting the document down. "Think." Vivian's voice pitched higher. "The wedding is in 6 weeks. The papers need to be filed before then. Then I have 6 weeks to decide." Marcus's hand tightened on my knee. "Nat, please. Don't make this difficult." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd fallen in love with 2 years ago, who'd promised we'd be partners, who'd said he admired my independence. Now he sat there, 32 years old, still cowed by his mother's glare. "I'm not signing anything tonight," I said firmly, sliding the document back across the table. Vivian's face transformed. The polished society smile cracked, revealing something uglier underneath. "Then perhaps you should reconsider whether you're truly ready to join this family." "Mom," Marcus started. "No, Marcus. If Natalie can't trust us with something as simple as property, how can we trust her with the Pemberton name?" I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "You're right. I should reconsider." The table erupted. Aunts gasped, uncles muttered, cousins filmed on their phones. Marcus grabbed my wrist. "Nat, wait. Let's talk about this." "We just did." I pulled free, gathering my purse. And I heard everything I needed to. As I walked toward the exit, Vivian's voice followed me, sharp and clear. If you walk out that door, the wedding is off. Marcus won't choose you over his family. I paused at the door, looking back at the man I'd planned to marry. He sat frozen, torn between standing and staying, his face a portrait of indecision. Then I guess he's made his choice, I said and laughed. The night air hit my face like freedom. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car. Texts from Marcus, calls from his sister, even a message from his cousin asking if I was really going to throw away such a good catch. I sat in my car for a moment, hands shaking not from sadness but from rage. They planned this ambush, counted on public pressure and tradition to force my hand. The 3-carat engagement ring on my finger caught the streetlight, throwing rainbows across the dashboard. I drove home to my townhouse, my beautiful, hard-earned townhouse in Arlington's historic district. I'd bought it 2 years ago, right before meeting Marcus. Every mortgage payment came from my salary as a software engineer. Every renovation, from the restored hardwood floors to the custom kitchen, paid for with my bonuses and careful savings. Inside, I poured a glass of wine and sat in my living room, surrounded by the life I'd built. My phone continued its incessant buzzing. Finally, I answered Marcus's 15th call. "How could you humiliate me like that?" His voice was tight with anger. "Humiliate you? Your mother demanded I give her my house. It's not like that. The trust protects family assets." "From what? From me? What happens if we divorce, Marcus? Do I get my house back?" Silence. "That's what I thought," I said. "You're overreacting. No one's getting divorced. But if you can't trust my family, your family just tried to con me out of $400,000 in property. That's not tradition, that's theft with fancy stationery. Don't be dramatic. Penelope did it. And now Penelope lives in a 1-bedroom apartment while your parents rent out her condo for $3,000 a month. Did you think I wouldn't notice?" More silence. Then, "The wedding is off if you don't apologize and sign those papers." I laughed, actually laughed. "Then it's off." I hung up and blocked his number. Then I did the same for his mother, his father, and the various relatives who'd started their bombardment. But I kept Penelope's number. Something told me I'd want to talk to her eventually. The next morning, I woke to find my social media flooded with messages. The Pemberton network had activated overnight. Mutual friends asked what happened. Wedding vendors inquired about cancellations. My own mother called, confused by a strange email from Vivian about my mental health crisis. I spent the morning methodically canceling wedding plans. The venue, a Pemberton family friend's estate, suddenly had booking issues. The caterer, also connected to the family, expressed concerns about moving forward. Even the florist, who'd seemed lovely, sent a curt cancellation notice. Fine. Let them show their true colors. By noon, Penelope called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Can we meet?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Not at a restaurant. Somewhere private." We met at a small park near my office. Penelope looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her usual perfect appearance cracked. "I need to tell you something," she said, glancing around nervously. "About the trust. I figured it out. They take the properties and control them. It's worse than that." She pulled out her phone, showing me bank statements. "They don't just control them. They leverage them. My condo? It's collateral for Harold's business loans. If his company fails, I lose everything." My blood chilled. Is that even legal? The way the trust is structured, yes. Once you sign, you have no say. They can borrow against it, sell it, anything. Tears ran down her cheeks. Thomas wanted to buy a house last year. We couldn't get approved because technically, I have no assets. Everything's in the trust. Why didn't you warn me? I tried to hint, but she gestured helplessly. You've seen what they're like. Cross Vivian and you're cut off completely. My own parents sided with her. I stared at the documents she showed me. property deeds, loan agreements, a web of financial manipulation that would make a crime syndicate proud. You need to run, Penelope whispered. Marcus won't stand up to them. He never has. That evening, curiosity got the better of me. I drove past the Pemberton family home in Bethesda, a massive colonial that Vivian loved to brag about. The driveway was full of cars. Family meeting, no doubt, strategizing how to bring me back in line. My phone rang. An unknown number, but I recognized Harold's voice. Natalie, let's be reasonable. You're upset. That's understandable. But throwing away your future over a simple business arrangement. A business arrangement? Is that what you call stealing your daughter's condo? Silence. Then, I see Penelope's been telling tales. She told the truth, which is more than any of you did. His voice hardened. You have no idea who you're dealing with. The Pembertons have connections in this city. Your career, your reputation. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. Sign the papers, marry Marcus, and everyone wins. Refuse, and well, I'd hate to see a promising young woman struggle professionally. I laughed. Harold, I work in tech. Half my colleagues think marriage is an outdated construct, and the other half are too busy coding to care about society drama. But please, tell your country club friends whatever you want. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Then I called my boss and gave her a heads up about potential drama. She laughed and told me about her own escape from a controlling family. Stand your ground, she said. Your code speaks for itself. 3 days passed. The Pemberton machine worked overtime. Vague rumors circulated about my instability. Friends received concerned calls about my breakdown. Someone even called my gym to cancel my membership per family request. I documented everything. Then, on Thursday, Marcus showed up at my door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, his usual polish gone. Please, he said. I love you. We can work this out. Do you love me, or do you love that I'm successful enough to have assets worth stealing? He flinched. That's not fair. Fair? Your mother tried to extort my house, your father threatened my career, and you sat there like a statue. That's what's not fair. I'll stand up to them. After we're married. After I sign over my house, you mean? He looked away. Even now, even desperate, he couldn't deny it. Go home, Marcus. This is insane. You're throwing away our life over property. No, I'm keeping my life instead of throwing it away to your family's greed. I started closing the door. Goodbye, Marcus. You'll regret this, he said, his mother's words in his mouth. No one walks away from the Pembertons. I shut the door in his face. That weekend, I found out what no one walks away meant. My Saturday started with a process server at my door. The Pembertons were suing me for breach of promise and emotional damages, seeking the cost of the canceled wedding plus punitive damages. I called my lawyer, who actually laughed. Breach of promise? What is this, 1890? Don't worry, this is harassment disguised as litigation. We'll handle it. But the lawsuit was just the beginning. My mailbox filled with wedding vendor bills. Apparently, I was responsible for all cancellation fees. The photographer claimed I owed the full amount. The venue demanded a year's worth of booking fees. Even the cake decorator sent an invoice for design work. Each bill had a note. Per the Pemberton family coordinator. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and went for a long run to clear my head. When I returned, there was a moving truck outside my townhouse. For a panicked moment, I thought they'd somehow seized my property. But then I saw Marcus directing movers to load boxes. What are you doing? I demanded. He didn't look at me. Getting my things. You have 3 shirts and a gaming console here. This is a full moving truck. One of the movers approached with my KitchenAid mixer. This one too, sir. That's mine. I blocked his path. Marcus, what the hell? Community property, he said smugly. We live together. Half of everything is mine. We dated. We weren't married. And you moved in here 6 months ago. My lawyer says differently. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Everyone stop. I'm calling the police. The movers hesitated. Marcus's face flushed. Don't be ridiculous. You're stealing my property. That's a crime, not a civil matter. I dialed 911, narrating clearly for the recording. I need police at 427 Highland Avenue. My ex-fiancé is trying to remove property from my home without permission. The movers backed away quickly. We don't want trouble, man, one told Marcus. You said she agreed to this. Within minutes, 2 patrol cars arrived. I showed them my deed, my receipts, photos of my possessions. Marcus stammered about misunderstandings and miscommunication. The officers were clear. Without a court order, he couldn't take anything but his personal belongings. They supervised as he gathered his actual possessions, which fit in 2 boxes. As the police left, one officer handed me a card. Consider a restraining order, ma'am. This kind of escalation is concerning. That night, I sat in my intact kitchen, making dinner with my rescued mixer, when Penelope texted, "Heard about today. I'm so sorry. Can I call?" We talked for 2 hours. She told me about other women who'd signed the papers. Marcus's cousin who lost her investment portfolio, an aunt whose business was liquidated to cover Harold's debts. A pattern spanning decades. Why doesn't anyone report them? With what proof? Everything's technically legal. They're careful. She paused. But you rattled them. No one's ever walked away before, especially not publicly. A week later, the harassment continued but shifted tactics. Professional contacts received anonymous tips about my instability. My LinkedIn filled with connection requests from people who'd immediately send intrusive messages. Someone tried to access my credit report multiple times. I hired a security firm to evaluate my home and a private investigator to document the harassment. Every incident, every witness, every digital trail, I collected it all. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. Thomas, Penelope's husband, called me. "I'm leaving her," he said bluntly, "and I want to help you bury the Pembertons." We met at his lawyer's office. He had boxes of documents, emails, financial records, recordings of family meetings. His own quiet rebellion, years in the making. "They destroyed our marriage," he said. "Penelope chose them over us every time. But this," he gestured to the papers, "this shows the full scope. Tax evasion, fraud, money laundering through the trust. They're not just controlling, they're criminals." I stared at the evidence. Why didn't you? Go to authorities. With what standing? I'm nobody. But you? He smiled grimly. You're the woman who publicly refused them. You have credibility. That night, I made copies of everything and sent them to my lawyer. She whistled low when she called back. This is federal territory. FBI, IRS, possibly SEC given Harold's business dealings. What about Penelope? The other women who signed? If we play this right, the trust could be dissolved. Assets returned. I thought about Penelope's tears, her tiny apartment, her stolen future. Do it. The next morning, I had breakfast at my favorite cafe, trying to feel normal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, a photo of me at that very cafe, taken moments ago. The message read, "Last chance to reconsider." Instead of panicking, I smiled and took a selfie, posting it publicly. Beautiful morning for coffee and freedom. To anyone watching, I see you too. Within an hour, #SeeYouToo started trending locally. Apparently, I wasn't the only woman who dealt with controlling families, stalker exes, or financial manipulation. Stories poured in. Support flooded my feeds. Vivian called from Harold's phone, screaming about ruining their reputation. I let her rant, the call recording automatically. "Are you listening?" she shrieked. "You stupid girl. I will destroy." "Vivian," I interrupted calmly. Your son is 32 and lies in your basement because you broke him. Your daughter cries herself to sleep in poverty while you cash rent checks from her stolen condo. Your husband commits fraud using your children's names. What reputation? She hung up. 3 weeks later, federal agents raided the Pemberton estate at dawn. Harold was arrested at his office. Vivian, trying to flee to their Hamptons house, was stopped at the Maryland border. The trust was frozen pending investigation. Forensic accountants began untangling decades of financial crimes. One by one, the properties tied up in the scheme were identified. Penelope called me sobbing, not from sadness, but relief. They're giving my condo back. Thomas and I are talking. Maybe we can. You deserve happiness, I told her. Real happiness. The investigation revealed the scope. 12 properties stolen from family members over 30 years. Hundreds of thousands in fraudulent loans. Tax evasion exceeding $2 million. The Pemberton empire, built on their children's futures, crumbled in weeks. Marcus tried calling once, from a number I hadn't blocked. How could you do this to us? I didn't do anything but say no. Everything else, that was your family's choices catching up. I have nothing now. The house is seized, accounts frozen. You have what you always had, yourself. Maybe now you'll figure out who that is. He hung up. I heard later he'd moved to Colorado, got a real job, started therapy. Maybe he'd break free, maybe not. No longer my concern. 6 months later, I stood in my townhouse garden, hosting a barbecue. My real friends were there, the ones who'd stood by me. Penelope and Thomas arrived together, her condo keys in her hand like a talisman. I redecorated everything, she told me, eyes bright. Painted over every trace of them. My boss raised a glass. To Natalie, who showed us all that no is a complete sentence. We toasted as the sun set over Arlington, painting the sky in shades of freedom. Later, cleaning up, I found my old engagement ring in a drawer. The 3 carats that were supposed to buy my compliance. I held it up to the light, watching rainbows dance. The next day, I sold it and donated the money to a women's shelter specializing in financial abuse recovery. The director, reading my note, called personally. The Pemberton name is well known here, she said quietly. You're not the first to escape them. But you're the first to stop them. I thought about tradition then, not theirs, but a new one. The tradition of women warning each other, protecting each other, refusing to let another generation fall into gilded traps. My house stood strong around me. Every brick a choice I'd made, every room a future they couldn't steal. Through the window, I watched new neighbors move in across the street. A young couple, bright with hope. The woman caught my eye and waved. I waved back, already planning to invite them for coffee. And if she ever mentioned pushy in-laws or family traditions involving property, well, I had quite the story to share. The Pemberton name became a cautionary tale in certain circles. Property lawyers started calling aggressive asset-grabbing pulling a Pemberton. The trust structure they'd used was officially investigated and regulated. But the real victory wasn't in their downfall, it was in the recovery. 12 women got their assets back. Marriages were rebuilt or peacefully ended. Children learned that love doesn't require surrender. As for me, I kept my townhouse, my career, my name. Everything they tried to take, I held tighter. Not from fear, but from the knowledge that some things are worth fighting for. The wedding photos. There weren't any, of course. But there was one photo that mattered. Me, standing in my doorway, the day the FBI returned my wrongfully targeted assets, holding the deed to my house, completely, irrevocably mine. That photo sits on my mantel now, next to a simple card Penelope sent. Thank you for saying no. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the wedding that never was. And sometimes, the only tradition worth keeping is the one where you keep what's yours.